Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Fabian for Liberty. You can check me out at fabianforliberty.com, also fabiancalvo.me. I gotta tell you, things are not only escalating very rapidly in the Ukraine, but there is a probability that either this particular event or an event, ladies and gentlemen, just like this, triggers World War III, or at least the very big global, or should I say larger regional war that I've been talking about now for some time, which will come, because it's, again, this isn't my theory, this isn't, a what if. This is an event called the Global Economic Reset that's happened 6 other times in the last 650 years, roughly. Happens on average roughly every 100 years. And we're on the verge of it happening again. And it always centers 4 points. Rampant out of control debt, empires expanded beyond the sustainability point, elite decadence, and complete corruption in government. I mean, I think check. We have all those in America. But not just in America, throughout the West and in many parts of the world. Now, here are the 2 scenarios that are likely in Ukraine. And I'll tell you which one that I think is going to happen. But the first one is, this event leads to World War III. Think that's funny? Think that is hyperbole? Think that's Fabian being fear, or, what is it? Fear porn or doom and gloom? No, that's Fabian putting on, not his tinfoil hat, that's Fabian putting on his hat of knowing history and being into reading history and knowing what's happened in the past and understanding that humans necessarily don't get any better with respect to learning from the past. They don't do that, unfortunately. Or at least not the ones that end up running stuff. It seems like they always have an agenda to get us into the same problems over and over again. Whether it's a greater plan, whatever your beliefs are on that, the point is that we look at history as a guide stone because it repeats itself over and over again, and that's what we're witnessing now. World War I, now, about a month ago, I did a video based off of the work of a Cambridge historian, prominent historian, came out and said, look, we're potentially facing World War I type scenario again, where globally the world is looking very reminiscent of 1914, when World War I started. And you look at what's happening now and you say, exactly. You see, the murder or the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand wasn't the, it was the flashpoint that started World War I. But World War I, and much of the way that flashpoint would happen so quickly was because things in the chain of events were happening way before that. Like what's been happening in the world now, where we have all of these different treaties with all these different countries. If you attack me, I'll attack them. If they attack you, I'll attack them. So not only do we have that, but we have the interconnectedness of all of these Western banks with all of the debt and deception and everything else. We have a scramble globally for hard assets, particularly natural resources and energy. And is it any mistake? Do you think this is a coincidence that just in the last year we've seen 2 major allies of Russia, the West, attempting to take them down? Now, yesterday, Obama warned Putin. He warned him and said, oh, this is unacceptable, and the international community is going to, we're going to write a letter, or we're going to give a stern statement. And Putin's like, I don't give a crap what you say. I'm going to do whatever I want. So if Putin rides in on tanks to Kiev, which is very probable, I mean, no question, 7 days ago I said Russians would invade. Now they've invaded. Not just people, not just military that was in the bases there already in Sevastopol, which is the head of the Black Sea Fleet. Not just those active military that were there. But no, now thousands and thousands of Russian troops have landed in Ukraine. They've in essence seized not only the Crimea Peninsula, but now there's reports that basically the whole eastern part of the country that sides itself with Russia, is Russian-speaking, is being taken over by Russian troops. And this is what led Obama to issue a warning yesterday, which is going to be ignored. Now, again, Putin goes into Ukraine, sends in military. The Kremlin gives him approval today to basically go to war with Ukraine over an extended period of time, or use the military to basically, what they say is to reestablish the social and political landscape that was there before. That means have the former president, or depends on what side you are, the Viktor Yanuchenko guy, or Yanuchenko, whatever, have him installed as president. Now, if Putin goes for that move, that will take us almost to the very verge of World War III. It just ultimately depends on the people, the elite that run the West. Okay, the decision makers, not Obama, not not Cameron, not none of these losers. Okay, the people above them that appoint them and that are the puppet masters. Will they say, we're going to throw it down right now? I don't think they will. I don't think World War III ultimately comes from this. But World War III will come from an event just like this. I don't think it'll be this time because, quite frankly, I think there's still a tremendous amount of fraudulent debt and all kinds of things that the New World Order needs to do to manage this decline of the economy, to basically manage this global economic reset. They're not there yet. So what's the alternative scenario that takes place in Ukraine? At the very least, Putin will have the eastern part of the country side with Russia. Ultimately, and that'll be on record, the country splits and becomes part of Russia or becomes some kind of new country, but basically is run by the Russians. That's, at the minimum, you're going to see that happen. Now, if Putin really wants to flex some muscles and go for this, and remember, he has China backing him already, he has all... Look, the rest of the world looks around at this, and a lot of people, even in the West, they recognize, why the hell are we even involved here, right? And more countries around the East, they're looking at the situation, they're saying, well, of course Russia is going to invade the Ukraine and try to, reestablish a friendly, or at least Russian-friendly administration back in there. I mean, that's like if Canada, and I've said this a few times, but if Canada was taken over by Iceland, it's pretty probable America would send in troops to help Canada repel Iceland. You see, when you kind of switch things around, they start to make all kinds of sense. Now, of course, I'd love to ask that question to John McCain and the 24 other neoconservative, warmongering members of the Senate that find that somehow this Ukrainian situation is a bigger threat to our national security than the 17 million illegal aliens that have flooded our country from Mexico and other parts of Central America. And somehow we shouldn't have our border, secure. But the borders of Ukraine matter more. You see how ridiculous this is, ladies and gentlemen? You see how this is all just a playbook and how it all goes down? Doesn't mean there's not real events going off, but ultimately a very small group of powerful, influential people control these events. And what's important to understand is the reason I've been so focused on Ukraine this week is because it is a model for taking down countries that you will see continue to spread. I mean, we've seen this in the last couple of years, really since the Arab Spring, and knowing that the revolutionaries of the Arab Spring, the very top so-called leadership, were trained by the State Department in fomenting revolution using social media and all other kinds of methods, okay? You recognize this is all about the global economic reset. This is a playbook, and these are countries that are now having, in essence, a new Cold War, but it's a proxy war between a super Eastern bloc that is rising, understanding we need to protect our not only our sovereignty, but our basically our geopolitically, we need to protect our area from what they see as Western aggression. And basically NATO wanting to put, nuclear weapons on Russia's doorstep. Of course they're not going to allow that to happen. Now, one other quick point I want to mention here, because the situation in Ukraine, another thing that I've been calling on that very well we could see happen in the next 30 days are suicide bombers begin to hit Ukraine. There is a small Muslim population in the Ukraine that, no question, is a potential launching pad, and it happens to be in the Crimea area, a launch pad for the West to use their asset known as Al-Qaeda to go in there, begin to basically blow things up, and use that as destabilization to say, look, the Russians are causing destabilization, and, whatever. But these are the types of events that lead to larger regional wars or global wars. The question is, will Putin and Russia invading Ukraine, like I said would happen, with thousands of troops, will that lead to World War III? Love to hear what you have to say about this. I'm Fabian for Liberty. Remember, you can check me out at fabianforliberty.com, also fabiancalvo.me. And I want to thank all of you that helped have the Fabian Calvo podcast make the top 100 in news and politics, and growing up on that list very quickly. If you haven't heard the podcast, you could listen to it on FabianForLiberty.com. And by the way, a podcast is kind of just like my radio show if you don't know what the hell a podcast is. It's like a radio show. It's every day, 30 minutes. You could listen to it at FabianForLiberty.com under the podcast section. Thanks for watching. I'm out.